I'm joined remotely via Zoom by Laurie Thomas, the Executive Director of the Golden Gate Restaurant Association. Thank you for being here, Laurie.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking.
So I'd like to begin with providing just a quick overview of what the Golden Gate Restaurant Association's relationship is with restaurants in San Francisco.
Well, we are really, I think, a longtime advocate of the restaurant community, not only in San Francisco, but folks in the East Bay or South Bay or North Bay are welcome to be members. We advocate for basically the survival and for restaurants to thrive. So we've been around since 1936. It's a long time. I've been the executive director since January, but I was on the board for the prior 13 years.
And Laurie, how has the COVID-19 epidemic impacted restaurants? You're a restaurateur yourself. How is the COVID-19 really impacting the survival of our small business owners?
Well, it's been just devastating to the industry. Already the restaurant industry in San Francisco was under a lot of economic pressure, and we saw in 2019 40% more closures than opening, which was already a warning, a sign. The costs of living, as well as a lot of other things, and the cost to the restaurants had gotten really high. So we're in a situation where we were at the early part of the year, we'd paid a lot of the year-end bills, and then, as I like to say, the music just stopped. And none of us, me included, are prepared for the music just stopping. Like, boom, it slowed down, and then we had to shut the doors completely. The night of March 16th, the shelter in place went into effect at midnight that night. So.
And how has the association itself been working with both City Hall and your restaurant members? I mean, you have a small staff. It's you and two other people.
That's correct.
And
two amazing women that work with me, and we're very, productive. We're small and productive.
And so how have you guys been? You had mentioned earlier that you'd opened up the association membership to anyone who wanted to
yes,
join.
We stopped charging any sort of member dues. Certainly, if you can afford to pay them, we appreciate it, because as of right now, we have no income coming into the organization. It's a 501c6, which is a nonprofit trade organization. So anybody that can afford to pay dues, we'll take them. But for people that are under financial stress, like most of our restaurant members, we've extended a free membership. Right now, we're thinking through probably September. We haven't officially made that decision yet, but that's what we're leaning towards. And also what we've done is opened up our Facebook member group to anybody that wants to join. And that's where we're posting real-time updates along with Twitter, and then trying to send as much as needed, but usually at a minimum 3 detailed email blasts with links to all the information. So I've tried really to be is communicating as quickly and as clearly as possible everything that's been going on.
And, with the whole close down of the economy, and then now trying to come back in different phases, and the mayor just rolling out her phase, could you share with the audience a little bit about where you see restaurants coming back, alive, and how people can actually participate and help?
So right now, the only restaurants that are open are those doing takeout, delivery, or helping feed those in need, like the homeless or the first responders. There are some that have pivoted from like Michelin star restaurants to just feeding those folks in need, working through SF New Deal, which is a phenomenal foundation that's helping partner those groups together and provide some funding. So the next kind of critical date, and we're hoping it doesn't get pushed out now with all of the events of last weekend and the curfew situation, but we're anticipating that we can open for outside dining on June 15th. And that hopefully will let people not only seat where they had permitted seating before, but taking advantage of what the city announced recently called the Shared Spaces Program. And we're still working out the details. I sit on the SF Economic Recovery Task Force. We're working with different members in the city and MTA and different business organizations, trying to come up with some ways to make that feasible, to leverage public spaces like parking spaces or shared streets, or maybe private spaces next to you, as long as the other owners agreed, that sort of thing. So that's super exciting.
And Laura, you've been a longtime restaurateur here in San Francisco, and I think people kind of almost take it for granted that restaurants are in their commercial corridors and their communities, et cetera. We're known as our kind of a culinary capital, especially in Northern California. What would you say over the many years here in San Francisco has been the biggest impact of restaurants on our community?
Well, my newest restaurant, which is 14 years old, is sort of named after this concept. It's called Terzo, which means third in Italian. And that's the third space. That's not your home or work, but it's a community gathering space. And really, restaurants form the backbone of community for so many people. We've seen families grow up at Rosa's Cafe in Terzo. We've seen people get married. And restaurants really have always been about celebration of life, and whether it's a positive or negative thing you're trying to overcome, they're really critical for a healthy city/urban environment. And I don't think that we should take any of them for granted anymore.
And then what would you say, given the situation, and a lot of restaurants have been forced to shut down and trying to struggle to come back, how can people who are watching or listening to this help their local restaurant in their neighborhood and or restaurants at large in San Francisco?
Yeah, so a couple of things. So certainly order takeout if you're healthy and if you can make it. Go to the restaurant, pay and pick it up and go home, or go to a park or wherever. That's preferable. All the money stays in the hands of the restaurant. You're not paying a commission for the food to get to you. That's first and foremost. I think a lot of restaurants did GoFundMe campaigns because it was a way where they could get support from the community that supports us, and then all of us, most of us anyway, paid those funds out to their workers, especially to help folks that maybe couldn't take advantage of the unemployment insurance options in our community. Unfortunately, we had that concern. So I think that was really a big win. The other way is some folks are doing gift cards, whether they're donation type things, like a war bond kind of idea, where you buy a bond, and then if it doesn't turn out that place is around, whatever, it was a donation. And then I think going forward, when we can do dine out, I know it's going to be a little cold in San Francisco, but if everyone can sort of tough it out and go sit on the patios and try to support the local restaurants, that'd be great. And then on a last note, I think being willing to support the restaurants and put your money where your mouth is important. And I think you're going to see prices go up. We've all lost a lot of money, and costs are gone up. You've seen the food cost has already gone up. So just to cover the food costs alone, but to continue to try to operate, I think you are going to see some price increases.
And I know in our prior conversation, the association is not a nonprofit, and we
are a nonprofit. We are a nonprofit, but we're a trade nonprofit, not a charitable nonprofit.
Right. So people can't make a donation to the Golden Gate Restaurant Association, for example.
They could, but it would not be deductible right now. So what we're going to try to focus on is we realized that we do have a scholarship organization, a 501c3 that's a scholarship, but that we can't really pivot. It has to stay in the scholarship realm. So what we're going to try to do is focus on developing a 501c3 for future disasters, if you will. So we have a way to do that. We have, I would say the city's done a really good job of establishing the Give to San Francisco Fund. And so if folks are still looking to write a check, they can do that. They can go to Give to San Francisco and do it that way. That's one thing that's in existence, and that's been helpful.
And I think what we also talked about was the idea that possibly the federal government might come up with another round of PPP that conceivably business associations could go for funding.
Yeah, so the feds, we need money from the feds. Everybody write your senators, particularly the Republican senators, and tell them to vote for what the House just approved last week, which is part of the CARES Act. And that was a well-meaning plan that was passed bipartisan, like a month ago now, that provided for funds. The first tranche, a lot of us didn't get them, but the second tranche, more small businesses got them, and some of the larger chains pulled back, gave the money back. So those funds had problems for restaurants because in order to get the full forgivability of the loan, you had to bring everybody back to the same level of employment within 8 weeks. And many of us are still closed, particularly in New York and San Francisco, right? And LA is just starting to open. So you couldn't really bring anybody back. And 75% of that loan had to be spent on bringing people back to that same level. So it wasn't really as as usable as a lot of people need it. So what this fix does is extends that period to 24 weeks. It turns the loan into a 5-year loan versus a 2-year loan, and it would allow you to spend more of that money on rent, for example. But the Senate has to pick that up and approve that, and we'll see what happens.
That was great insight. Final question. What would you hope that would come out of this really horrible situation for the restaurant industry in San Francisco?
Well, I think that we're already seeing some positives. I mean, I've certainly had developed some amazing relationships with people in our hospitality, different trade organizations, with people in the city and city government and in all different areas. I've met different people that I've never knew before that have become, friends and colleagues. And so that has really been an amazing 90 days. And also we've seen the restaurant community come together in a way that we've never seen it come before. Everybody's been sort of tunnel vision, doing their own thing. And now we're like all one family, right? And so that's been amazing. And I have seen that at a national level with the Independent Restaurant Coalition that Tom Colegio is a co-founder of, and that I've been lucky enough to sit on the calls now 3 times a week and listen to what's going on. And that's been a national voice. We've also been working locally closely with another group called the Bay Area Hospitality Coalition, a group of different chefs, some of the top chefs in the city, and we're all working together. And so I don't want to say it's a first, but it's a very unusual situation. Somebody said it best on the call the other day. They said, I think I've found my tribe. Like, it's so nice to know that you're in it together. So that's been amazing. That's been really positive. And I hope out of this, the city is seeing the devastating effect of not having a hospitality sector. What happens when the hotels are closed, when we don't have the restaurants functioning? What does that mean for life in the city? And we need to take a step back and say, what works for a small business with a lot of employees versus what works for a large business with higher margins. It's not apples to apples. It's a very different equation. And so we might have to make some policy decisions about how to support restaurants who have classically no margin.
Thank you, Laurie. That was great insights there. I want to thank you again for sharing your and your team's work. We'll make sure all of your information is available to all of our viewers as well.
We really appreciate everybody's support, and we want to keep as many restaurants viable as possible. That's our goal. Reopen as many and let them stay reopened, right? Let's reopen and let's stay open. That's the goal.
Which requires everybody in the community to rally around all of their favorite places and new places to discover.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So thanks you guys, and I appreciate all the opportunity to keep sharing what's going on, and we're here if anybody has questions.
Well, thank you, Laurie. Stay safe out there, and good luck with the reopening of both your own restaurants and the association.
Yes. Thank you very much. Have a good day.